Good afternoon, one and all. I deem it a great honor to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajiv Jain, distinguished speaker, Professor Ajiai Niumai, our beloved HOD, Dr. Rashmi Jain, respected Professor S.L. Sharma, respected family members and friends of Ahuja sir, invited guests, dignitaries, and my dear students and scholars. It's my privilege and pleasure to welcome you all on the behalf of Department of Sociology on the occasion of Professor Ram Ahuja Memorial Oration on this digital platform. We are delighted to have you all with us to participate in this oration. As we all know, the Department of Sociology, University of Rajasthan, organizes Professor Ram Ahuja Memorial Oration on 30th September every year in the cherished memory of Ahuja sir, one of the stalwart of the department. The oration has been regularly held since 2002. He was one of the founding members of the department and a renowned social scientist. As very well said by Shannon L. Elder, carve your names on hearts, not tombstones. A legacy is etched into the mind of others and the stories they share about you. Ram Ahuja, a veteran sociologist from Rajasthan, carved his name on his hearts, left indelible footprints on topics whichever he touched by his incisive analysis, indefatigable hard work, and logical presentations. Now, I would like to request Dr. Rashmi Jain ma'am, Professor S.L. Sharma sir, to pay homage to Professor Ram Ahuja. Professor, I request Manju Kumari ma'am to please pay homage to Ram Ahuja sir. A teacher is like a candle which consumes itself to the light the way of others. The duties of a teacher are neither few nor small, but they elevate the mind and gives energy to the character. Professor Ram Ahuja, a bright and ever shining star on the firmament of sociological studies and research, left impeccable impact and was one of them who always had the vision to foresee the shape of emerging social phenomena. Professor Ahuja will always be remembered and revered for his human qualities by all those associated with him, his seers, peers, and his students. He is no more in this world, but we pay our sincere tribute to him by furthering his thought process and complementing his solid and worthy contribution in the field of social sciences. In memory of Professor Ram Ahuja, all we can say is your life was a blessing, your memory a treasure. You are loved beyond words and missed beyond measure. Now I would like to request Dr. Rashmi Jain ma'am for the welcome address and illuminate us with a life sketch of Professor Ram Ahuja. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Anuja. Good afternoon, everybody. Esteemed guests, on behalf of Department of Sociology and on my personal behalf, I'm extremely honored to welcome the keynote speaker, Professor Ajiai Niumai, Head Center for the Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, Central University of Hyderabad. The chairperson, Professor Rajiv Jain, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Rajasthan, family members and friends of Professor Ram Ahuja, our esteemed senior colleagues, whom we see the galaxy of our senior colleagues, distinguished guests who have joined not only from the state but from the country, and now I can say through internationally as well, present faculty members and dear students. 19 years ago, Professor Ahuja moved to his permanent address and leaving us, his family members, friends, his colleagues, the Department of Sociology bewildered and shocked. Professor Ahuja was one of the stalwarts of this department who contributed in establishing it and raising it to the heights of name and fame. Today, we have all gathered here to pay our respects to him, remember him with reverence, and pray for his peace to his soul. Born in 1929, Professor Ram Ahuja was one of the legendary symbols of sociological traditions in Rajasthan. His contemporaries acknowledged and rejoiced in his contributions, while his successors are inspired to continue this legacy and broaden the scope and depth of his work. Professor Ahuja authored more than 20 books in Hindi and English. His books established him as a serious scholar in the field of criminology, sociology of deviance, and political sociology. He had deep interest in studying the pathological state of the society. He was awarded Govind Vallabh Pant Award by the Bureau of Police Research and Development, New Delhi, in 1998. And in the same year, he was also awarded with Suprabha Dev Medal for his book on crime against women. His books on criminology encapsulated the thematic understanding of criminal behavior. Professor Ahuja lives on through his books. And I'm very happy that we have Pranit Rawat who's joined us, and he's one of the publishers. He's one of I would not say one of the, but he is the only publisher whom Professor Ahuja favored, and he has spread his name and fame throughout the country. Thank you so much for joining us. It is hard to find a student of sociology who has not read Professor Ahuja's books on Indian society, social problems, social research, and so on. Such a vast and wide ranging corpus of work of distinguished Professor Ahuja as a finest scholar with acute sociological sensitivity. Moreover, his writing carries the imprint of a dedicated field worker. His concern for the students went well beyond his writing and established him as one of the most popular and lovable teacher of the department. He had the singular distinction of not missing even a single class. No wonder Professor Ahuja commanded tremendous respect from his peers and students alike, and this respect is very evident when we see our whole meeting totally full. Professor Ahuja was a talent pool of wisdom and experiences. We pay tribute to him by furthering his thought process and his solid and worthy contribution in the field of social sciences. It's a great pleasure to welcome Professor Ajiai Niumai, renowned in the academic field of sociology, an international social scientist whose academic credentials are very well established, to be the keynote speaker today. Welcome, Professor Ajiai. Professor Niumai is an academician who wears many hats with great elan. Being a prolific writer and an ardent researcher are just two of them. She is currently member of the management committee of the Indian Sociological Society 2019 to 2024, a 6-year term. Her research areas are sociology of gender, Indian diaspora, Northeast studies, NGOs, and development, amongst others. Ajiai, your gracious presence today has enhanced the aura and the relevance of this lecture. We are very happy that the theme you have chosen to speak on also resonates with Professor Ahuja's interest areas. Thank you for accepting our invitation and delivering this memorial oration. I extend a warm welcome to our chairperson, Professor Rajiv Jain, Vice Chancellor, University of Rajasthan, in today's oration. He has recently joined the university as a VC and has shown keen interest in academic programs. Sir, your coming in the oration exemplifies your dedication and concern for the academic growth of the university. I'm sure that under your able and visionary guidance, University of Rajasthan will touch new heights of success. Your presence in today's oration is a source of encouragement for all of
ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ
us.
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ನನ್ನ ಜೊತೆ ಇದ್ದವರು ತರಿಸಿದ್ರು ನೋಡಿ
Please, you are requested to
ಬಂದಾಗ
mute
ನೋಡುವಾಗ
yourself.
ಇಲ್ಲ
Everybody, please, you're requested to mute yourself. I take this proud privilege of welcoming our senior colleagues, Professor Sushma Sood, Dr. Keval Ramani, Professor Jayan Chaudhary, Professor Sushila Jain, Dr. Bhargav, Professor Rajiv Gupta, Dr. Aruna Bhargav, Dr. Naina Sharma, Dr. Deepa Mathur,
ಇದು
Dr.
ಮಾಡಿ
Manju Kumari,
ಒಳಗೆ ಇದು
who have
ಸಾರಿ
taken
ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿ
the trouble to join us. May I request, just a sec, Dr. Sunita V, may I request you to please mute yourself? Yeah, sorry with the disturbance. Yeah, so we are so blessed that our seniors have always encouraged us by their presence here, and they always take out the time to be with us on all our special occasions. Your presence in all the department and all the programs of the department means a lot to us. I welcome you all from the bottom of my heart. I also extend a warm welcome to my own colleagues and faculty from other departments, and our students who have joined online. And a special welcome to Professor Indra, who has joined, and other colleagues who have joined from the country at large. I wholeheartedly welcome family members and friends of Professor Ahuja. Their presence and continuous involvement in the oration boost us morally. I'm deeply grateful for their valuable contribution in the department. Their gesture of donation of books for the MA students, providing gold medal to the topper in MA every year, a monetary reward of rupees 5,000 for those students who secure more than 80% marks, has surely established their linkages with the department. The family has contributed to keep the Professor Ahuja's memory alive. This year, due to the pandemic situation, exams have not taken place, so we will not be conferring the gold medal today. Otherwise, in this oration, we also confer the gold medal to the students securing highest marks, and also scholarship, a token amount of 5,000 rupees to students who are gaining, so that students are encouraged to take up sociology as their course of study. This memorial oration in the memory of such a great personality will take us to higher levels in the world of ideas. Thank you so much for coming, accepting an invitation, and gracing the occasion. And I look forward to Ajialu's presentation. Thank you so much. Over to you, Anuja.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The best thing about memories is making them. Things end, but memories last forever. Memories are timeless, treasures of the heart. In this regard, I would now invite Professor Shushma Sood ma'am to kindly share timeless memories of Professor Ahuja. Over to you, ma'am. Shushma ma'am, kindly unmute yourself.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Good afternoon, one and all. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Jain, the honored dais, and head of the department, and convener, and all the colleagues and friends and family members of Ahuja family. I am very fortunate today that I was overwhelmed when lovely Anuja asked me to share some memories of Professor Ahuja. Thank you, Anuja, for giving me this opportunity to share some of the golden, unforgettable memories. Friends, I am very fortunate that I was associated with Professor Ram Ahuja for over 3 decades. I was his undergraduate student at Maharani's College, followed by the postgraduate student, and then thereafter he was my mentor, my guide for my PhD doctorate. And not only that, I was also lucky to have him as one of the external examiners for my DLIT. I'm very lucky that he was not only a only the prolific writer, researcher with innovative ideas, but he was a very noble human being. He was a fatherly figure. He gave me fatherly love. And I think, friends, that this love and affection runs deep into the family of Ram Ahuja even today, when I get a lot of love and respect from one and all from that family. I'm very lucky that when I was writing my book on war widows, he was not keeping very well, but he suggested me to write about one chapter on sociology of absence, which I did. And fortunately, before he departed, he could see my book published on war widows in India and Nepal. Friends, whatever I am today, I am really indebted to Professor Ram Ahuja. He not only taught me lessons of sociology, but also lessons of life. He molded my personality. He played a vital role. And for my first job in Kanoria College, I fondly remember that he took me on his Vespa scooter to introduce me to Madam Tarve, who was the principal of Kanoria College. And when we came back, we had an appointment letter which Professor Ram Ahuja helped me to do so. So whatever I am today, I am because of Ram Ahuja. And one thing I'll never forget in life, I was by his side when he breathed his last on 30th September 2001. And I can never forget that ever endearing face, visage. and I came back to his house with his immortals, following the ambulance in my car with tears in my eyes. Friends, I pay homage to his departed soul. Shat Shat Naman, Om Shanti. Thank you. Thank you.
Sweet memories are gifts of life. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing lovely memories of Professor Ram Ahuja. It's indeed our pleasure to have you, ma'am. We
Thank
all know that Professor Ahuja taught not only the lessons of sociology, but also the lessons of life. Now I request Professor G.S. Keval Ramani sir to share Professor Ahuja's everlasting endearing memories. Over to you, sir. Dr. G.S. Keval Ramani sir, kindly unmute yourself.
Professor Kelramani sir, kindly, Ramani sir,
Huh. Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir, you're
Can you hear?
audible.
Okay, okay. Good afternoon to everybody. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajiv Jain, key speaker, Professor Niumai, Professor S.L. Sharma, Head Dr. Rashmi Jain, colleagues, members of Professor Ahuja family, and friends. विद्यार्थियों की ज्यादा सोचते हुए मैं हिंदी में बोल रहा हूं क्योंकि मुझे याद आ रहा है कि प्रोफेसर आहूजा विद्यार्थियों के प्रति बहुत ज्यादा चिंतित रहते थे. So I will prefer speaking in Hindi than English because by now almost all the speakers have spoken in English. So I hope that I'm permitted to speak in Hindi. प्रोफेसर राम आहूजा का व्यक्तित्व और कृतित्व सभी के लिए प्रेरणादायक रहा है. स्टूडेंट्स, पाठक, यहाँ तक कि पुस्तक विक्रेता भी उनके योगदान से लाभान्वित हुए हैं. यदि हम देखें, सोचें, तो हमें देखने को मिलता है पर्टिकुलरली 2 वेबसाइट्स पर. यदि आप goodreads.com पर जाएं तो हमें स्टैटिस्टिकल डिस्क्रिप्शन देखने को मिलता है. अभी डॉक्टर रश्मि जैन ने ये बताया कि उनकी 20 पुस्तकें, लेकिन goodreads.com पर उनके 14 बुक्स का उल्लेख मिलता है जिसमें स्टैटिस्टिकल डिस्क्रिप्शन है कि 14 बुक्स को हंड्रेड्स ऑफ रीडर्स ने रेटिंग किया है और यह रेटिंग ऑलमोस्ट क्लोज टू 4 है. एंड 2751 readers have shelved his books for the future. So, ये स्टैटिस्टिकल डेटा बताता है कि उनकी पुस्तकें कितनी मायने रखती है और कितनी पॉपुलर है. सिमिलरली, जैसा कि मैंने कहा कि राम आहूजा की पुस्तकों से विद्यार्थी या पाठक ही लाभान्वित नहीं हुए हैं, बल्कि पुस्तक विक्रेता भी लाभान्वित हुए हैं. यदि आप abe.co.uk पर जाएं तो ऑलमोस्ट एवरी बुक सेलर has given a rating of 5 out of 5. So you can think of extent कि कहां तक वे लाभान्वित हुए हैं. प्रोफेसर राम आहूजा मेरे प्रोफेशनल कैरियर और सोशल लाइफ में मेरे रोल मॉडल रहे। मैं यहां स्पष्ट कर दूं कि मैं जब रोल मॉडल की बात कर रहा हूं तो मैं रोल मॉडल और मेंटर में अंतर नहीं कर रहा हूं, बिकॉज आई नो mentor is a two-way relationship, whereas role model may or may not be a two-way relationship. Ram Ahuja was my mentor as well as role model. जब मैं रोल मॉडल की बात करता हूं तो मैं चार इंपॉर्टेंट कंपोनेंट्स को देखता हूं। नंबर वन, द लेवल ऑफ सब्जेक्ट नॉलेज। नंबर टू, student care approach. Number three, humanistic behavior. And number four, personality attributes demonstrated in empathy, respect and passion. इन सभी कंपोनेंट्स को कवर करना तो पॉसिबल नहीं है मेरे लिए लिमिटेड टाइम के अंतर्गत। मैं उनके एक कंपोनेंट, एक विशेषता का एक उदाहरण देना चाहूंगा और वह है ह्यूमनिस्टिक बिहेवियर। मैं उन भाग्यशाली कलीग्स में था जिनको कि प्रोफेसर आहूजा के साथ गवर्नमेंट एजेंसी से स्पॉन्सर्ड प्रोजेक्ट्स में काम करने को मिला। जब प्रोजेक्ट रिपोर्ट तैयार हुई तो एक बहुत ट्रिवियल इशू, आई से ट्रिवियल, बहुत छोटा इशू था, मेरे लिए कोई मायने नहीं रखता था उस वक्त, कि आया कि दोनों के पदनाम जो है, पोजीशंस जो है, वो कैसे रखी जाए। आई वॉज वेरी ओपन। मैंने उनसे कहा कि सर, आपका एज डायरेक्टर और उसके नीचे मेरा एज डिप्टी डायरेक्टर जाना चाहिए। He said, no, Kevalamani, I don't believe in hierarchical structure, so I do not approve it. What we do is कि दोनों का नाम एक ही रो में जाएगा। तो उनका नाम डायरेक्टर राम आहूजा and my name instead of deputy director, he suggested it will go as co-director. Now, finding such an act of humanistic nature, I went emotional, and because of this act, I remember today the quote given by Kazan Zatis, who has said, true teachers use themselves as bridges. True teachers use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross. Then, having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapse, encouraging their students to create bridges of their own. So, I really remember this act, humanistic act on the part of Professor Ram Ahuja. Now, similarly, we find that प्रोफेसर राम आहूजा के योगदान में बहुत कुछ सफलता का आधार जो रहा है, उनकी वाइफ मिसेस आहूजा का रहा है। मिसेस आहूजा स्नेह, करुणा की, प्रेरणा की हमेशा स्रोत रही। तो ऐसे अवसर पर दोनों को मेरा शत शत नमन है। धन्यवाद। This is all.
Sir. Thank you so much, sir. Truly, he was source of inspiration, mentor, and role model for all of us. Thank you for sharing your lovely memories of Professor Ram Ahuja. On behalf of Department of Sociology, we are honored to have with us to deliver oration today Professor Ajiai Niumai. Head, Center for the Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, University of Hyderabad. She has served as the Assistant Professor, Department of Sociology in University of Hyderabad from 2000 to 2009, and she is one of the pioneers in establishing the Center for Women's Studies, University of Hyderabad in 2007. Currently, ma'am is the member managing committee of Indian Sociological Society. Earlier, she served as the convener of RC4 Migration and Diaspora Studies of ISS from 2016 to 2019. She has been an active member of the International Sociological Association. She is the national resource person for UGC capacity building of women managers in higher education. She has published several articles in the national and international peer-reviewed journals, chapters in edited books, and book reviews. She is the peer reviewer for Sage Journal and Francis and Taylor Journal. In 2013 to 2014, she was the visiting fellow in University of Iowa, USC. She graduated in sociology honors from Miranda House, 1995, Delhi University, and completed her MA 1997, MPhil 1999, and PhD in sociology 2008 from JNU, New Delhi. Her specialization includes sociology of gender, Indian diaspora, Northeast studies, NGOs, and development. The Collaborative Arts and Research Translation for Human Advancement, USC, awarded her first fellow grant in 2006. The UGC award, the C.V. Raman Postdoctoral Fellowship in USA 2013. She has completed 6 research projects sponsored by UGC, ICSSR, Sehgal Foundation, and I Foundation of America. The topic that ma'am has chosen for delivering lecture and sharing insights is on doing field work in unconventional situations, a study of human trafficking and organized crime in South India. The menace of human trafficking is huge and is spanning all over the globe. There is a dire need to understand the concept of human trafficking and organized crime. A gracious welcome to you, ma'am, on behalf of Department of Sociology. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your wonderful introduction, Anuja.
It's our pleasure, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Rajasthan University, Professor Rajiv Jain, Professor Rashmi Jain, Head of the Department of Sociology, Anuja Jain, Convener, and Dr. Ashu Jain, Co-Convener, for inviting me to this auspicious occasion of Professor Ram Ahuja Memorial Oration today. It is a great honor and privilege for me to deliver a lecture on doing field work in unconventional situation, a study of human trafficking and organized crime in South India in memory of our esteemed late Professor Ram Ahuja, in the presence of his family members, Professor Susma Sood, Professor G.S. Kewal Ramani, Professor R. Indra, Professor Santi Gopalan, all the senior esteemed colleagues, my contemporary colleagues, students, and guests today. During my JNU days, I remember that I felt challenged and enriched to focus on critical social concerns by reading Professor Ram Ahuja's book called Social Problems in India, where he highlighted about violence against women, drug trafficking, child abuse, and many more from an empirical and theoretical perspectives. Professor Ahuja, as Professor Shushma, and also our senior colleague, Professor G.S. Kewal Ramani, have already mentioned, was a man of compassion, a mentor, and also, a man of vision. And he has definitely touched the lives of several sociology fraternity through his writing, as Professor Rashmi Jain also pointed out in the beginning. At the onset, I would like to mention that I have been working on human trafficking of girls and women since the past 12 years, after I had a first-hand experience in the summer of 2008. Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are hub of source, transit, and destination of human trafficking. Andhra Pradesh is reported to be one of the biggest supply states, where about 40% of trafficked women and girls are supplied to metropolitan cities in India, as per the Asian Development Bank report of 2003. Human trafficking has been invariably linked with poverty, debt bondage, migration, and socio-cultural acceptance of trafficking, all of which is registered in both the states of Andhra and Telangana. Asian Development Bank report of 2003 also affirms that trafficked people in India are largely employed in commercial sex work, bonded labor, begging, and domestic labor. Now, industrial labor and other business purposes constituted the second largest sector of employment of trafficked persons. So my point is that human trafficking is invisible, and bringing the invisible to the visible is the greatest challenge, as there is no method, and even the police are always in search of new strategies to arrest the traffickers. Now, this study on trafficking in South India is a part of my UGC major research project of 2012 to 2014. And I revisited the field sites in 2018 and 19 to understand the new dynamics of trafficking. The objective of the study are to examine the magnitude, causes, and impact of trafficking in these two states. And it also attempts to understand the underlying linkages between trafficking, forced migration, servitude, and prostitution from a sociological perspective. I don't want to, go into the concept of human trafficking, but let me say that human trafficking is considered as a new form of slavery in our 21st century and connected to the contemporary global expansion, which has created more wealth and mobility after drugs and arms. The nomenclature of human trafficking has been rendered into many harmless aspects of crime. Let me draw your attention that every 10 minutes, a child disappears in India. Every 10 minutes, a child disappears in India. UNICEF affirmed 2 lakhs women and children are missing and untraced last year in our country in 2019. UNICEF estimates globally that there are around 21 million trafficked people. Now, apart from human trafficking, within Andhra and Telangana, traditional forms of prostitution are prevalent, such as the Devadasi, Yoginis, Marthamas, Domaras, Basarvis, and the like. Now, for decades, the most vulnerable group to be trafficked were the economically and socially disadvantaged people. But with the proliferation of ICT, information, communication, and technology, even economically privileged section of the society who are emotionally vulnerable have been trapped into situations of exploitation. Hundreds of thousands of girls and women, including children, have been deceived, coerced, or manipulated by fraudulent means and forced into sex slavery. Now, this is also known as the downside of globalization, and also as the globalization of crime. Prajwala, one of the most prominent NGO here in Hyderabad, currently hosts 300 girls who trafficked, rescued, survivors in the shelter home. I went and met them a year back. It's just fascinating as to how these women in Hyderabad are, undergoing through vocational training. Some of them are already trained and is employed in the carpentry, in bookbinding, in embroidery, in even organic farming, and list goes on. They have opened up their bank accounts by Prajwala under the leadership of Sunita Krishnan, who has been given the Padma Shri award by the government of India for working on human trafficking and also preventing prostitution in Andhra and Telangana. Now, this NGO Prajwala mentioned that Andhra has more than 60% of the victims below 18 years old to be subjected to sexual exploitation. And it shows that there are a large number of women and children trafficked into the metro cities and urban towns within our country from this part of down South India. AP accounts for 25% to 85% of the victims in these cities within our country. Traffickers are also mostly local people and who operate in an organized way. So they're not foreigners, they're not outsiders, they are the Telugu speaking traffickers, the local people, you know, and they operate in such a way, which I will explain a little later. Now, some of the questions arises as to why the traffic victims are willing to migrate to metropolises and the Gulf countries without authenticating about their type of work. I'm not going to touch about the Gulf. See, there are Muslims in the Charminar old city of Hyderabad. Young Muslim girls are usually married off to the old sheikhs of 70 years, 80 years, you know, and there are so many cases which my good friend Jamila Nishat, a Muslim poet and feminist and Sahitya Academy awardee through her NGO, have been rescuing and rehabilitating them. But I will not touch on that Gulf marriages, forced marriages and trafficking to Gulf countries. I will confine to trafficking within the country in this paper. My second question is, which section of the people are the most vulnerable victims of human trafficking? How many of them have been prosecuted by the state? How many of the traffickers have been prosecuted by the state? Do their families accept the traffic survivors once they are rescued by the NGOs and police? Is another question I raise. How does the process of labeling a traffic survivor affect her relationship with her family and in her prospect to get married? Does the society play a dominant role in labeling these traffic survivors? You, Vindhya, and Swati Dev, who have been doing extensive research on trafficking in Andhra and Telangana, found in their study in 2011 that out of 26 districts in Andhra Pradesh, more than half districts are reported to have cases of human trafficking. Now, that is huge. They found that 16 out of 23 districts of the states are affected by trafficking. They examined the cases of actually 78 trafficked women survivors from Anantapur district to various metropolitan cities in India who have since returned back to their respective home. They identify the individuals and family circumstances and contribute to trafficking. You know, their experiences and gendered vulnerability that set them up for trafficking. Now, the rationale for selecting the field site, why I choose Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. The National Crime Record Bureau stated that in Andhra Pradesh, 240 cases of human trafficking were registered in 2018, which was 9.7% of the total cases in India. In Telangana, 335 women were trafficked for prostitution in 2018. So the cases of trafficking has decreased in 2018-19. Now 20 figure has to come, which is not yet known, compared to 10 years back. But still, you know, it's around average 10 to 12% of the total cases of trafficking in India. If we look at Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Now, the rationale for choosing these two states as my field site is that it has a large number of well-established routes that are operational and used for trafficking of girls and women to various cities and also overseas, as I mentioned, especially the Gulf countries with the old sheikhs. International trafficking mostly occurs in the form of contract marriages. in the Gulf countries. Now, trafficking is an organized crime which is prevalent at various levels: local, inter-district, interstate, and cross-border. There are actually 4 important networks of trafficking in these 2 states: the Mumbai network, the Delhi network, the Kolkata network, and the Goa network. Now, let me quickly point it out that, you know, the Mumbai, all these networks are operated in such a sophisticated, organized manner. Research methodology, I'll explain a little elaborately on my research methodology, because I'm talking about doing field work in an unconventional situation. Now, doing research in this unconventional situation of human trafficking of girls and women in South India is that it is not a textbook case of research. There are new surprises and uncharted territories, an unexplained situation when I conducted fieldwork. There was no pre-planned formula, which I used to study human trafficking initially, since I didn't know how the traffickers and the rescue survivors would react to my queries. You know, it was an unpredictable situation. And time is also deeply ingrained in this study, because it's a UGC project, and UGC project, as we all know, is a time-bound project. Now, the study employs a triangulation method. Triangulation refers to the use of multiple methods or data sources and qualitative research to develop a comprehensive understanding of phenomena. Both quantitative as well as qualitative information were extracted from the data. Secondary sources are extracted from the books, journals, NGO documents, census report, newspapers, and online sources. And I formulated a detailed 3 interview schedules, you know, for one for the social activists and NGOs, second for the police personnel, and third for the traffic survivors. Now, each of these 3 schedules aims at understanding the issue and problem of trafficking and its impact from the perspective of each respondent. And then some case studies were selected in both the states. An interview is a far more personal form of research than questionnaires. So my main task in interviewing was to understand the meaning of what the traffic survivors say. It's an ethno-methodology method. In almost all cases, the interviews were finished in one sitting. Only in some cases, the interview process was interrupted due to the survivors' emotional outbursts. Sometimes while interviewing, they speak slowly, they cry, they stop talking, you know, because in a way I feel guilty, because I felt like I'm re-traumatizing them after the police re-traumatize, or the, you know, after the traffickers traumatize them, and then the police question them and traumatize them. And here, as a professor, as a researcher, I'm also kind of re-traumatizing them. So I really feel guilty sometimes, you know, and I would wait and, you know, just relax, and sometimes hold the girl whom I interviewed, you know, and hold her hand and things like that. Now, sometimes with the help of NGO staff, the survivors were consoled, and then the interviews were resumed. Almost, you know, all NGO, one of the interesting things is that all the NGO activists staff, they insisted that we conduct, me and my research fellow and assistants conduct interview in their presence. They don't want me to interview the respondents without their presence at all. And that I find it very, you know, peculiar. And also I couldn't question much, you know, because if I began to question them, they wouldn't allow me, right? So I need to be a little cautious. Now, the biggest hurdles in the process of interviewing the police personnel are obtaining an interview appointment, and the intermittent interruptions during the interview, like phone call, you know, or staff calls and somebody coming in. So the most difficult experience of the field work with the survivors and the staff of the NGOs include inability to gather the data on time and appointment with the respondents. And this also is true with the police. NGOs and police personnel refuse to share their personal details as well as professional designations, citing confidentiality. Now, this is so different when I look at Northeast, because when I went for field work in Northeast for my ISISA project, police are very quite open. Even the survivors are quite open. The NGOs are quite open. I was allowed to use the names, but of police and the NGO workers, as well as the Department of Social Welfare. But here in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, I mean, I was asked to maintain confidentiality. And initially, when I started, I remember when I approached the NGOs, like Prajwala, for instance, they told me over the phone that I should first seek permission from the Commissioner of Police in Hyderabad. So I remember writing a long letter to the Commissioner of Police and then send it through my research fellow to meet the commissioner, and took permission, put the stamp on it saying that he approved. And then, NGOs allowed us to carry out the interviews. Now, the survivors consented to meet and talk on the condition that obviously their identities will not be disclosed at all. To be precise, this study adopts a purposive sampling technique and snowball method. Snowball method was successfully used in identifying key NGOs and police personnel as they pass on contact details, and then provided references to contact the other key persons in different areas. I started with a purpose in mind, and the sample is selected to include people of interest and exclude those who does not suit the objective and purpose of my research. I remember contacting an NGO called Help, then Chaitanya Mahila Mandali, women's NGO, which is located just next to Osmania Arts College, Osmania University Arts College, run by a reformed sex worker. It's a women's organization, and hundreds of sex workers come every day to take counseling, condom, HIV medicine, and they also have a children's orphan home in the second or third floor, second floor, yeah. When I went there many years back, there was, the office was very dry. But when I went back a couple of years back, the office was very lively. World Bank has pulled in money, IMF has pulled in fund, and so many international NGO, international organizations have recognized the effort of this Chaitanya Mahila Mandal. So I observe a sea change in this organization. And women are quite bold because they have been trained, they have been, given a lot of counseling. Then I contacted Sahin Women Resource and Welfare Association in Charminar, that is the old city run by a Muslim feminist and Sahitya Academy awardee, which I mentioned already, Zamila Nishat. Prajwala, as I mentioned already, Bhumika Collective is again a very big women's organization dealing with domestic violence. My Choices, which is just located next to the Faluknama Palace, the famous 7-star hotel converted from the old palace. This My Choices is run by an Australian woman and a couple of I was the first trustee of this NGO. And then the Kasturba Gandhi Memorial Trust Home, which is now a Swadhar shelter home. Which is really in pathetic condition, this Kasturba Gandhi Memorial Trust Home. I went a couple of times with my research fellow. Now, these are the NGOs that I contacted through phone and email. Then I went and met them. I took appointment to meet the founders and the staff, and I conducted the pilot study, and I also spoke to the sex worker on the pilot study to test my questionnaires in September 2012. Now, the victims of trafficking were identified with the help and consent of these NGOs and the police. In all, 20 districts in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana were covered. my research assistants and my research fellow traveled to different districts around these two states. The unit of analysis is 47 NGO staff and social activists, 27 police officers, and then 224 traffic survivors that were conducted from February to March 2013, and then from February to February to August 2013, and then February to March 2014. I revisited the field site in March 2018, and then January to February 2019. So in total, I would say that the field work was conducted for 12 months. So finally, the data between these two states were analyzed and compared with the help of the SPSS, you know. Now coming to the theoretical framework, the largest number of girls and women trafficked in South India are from within and from the region. Now, this is theoretically supplemented by one of the finest social scientists, Manuel Castells, in his book, The Rise of the Network Society, who focuses on the global criminal economy as an inalienable companion of globalization, which is true of South India. Now, Erwin Goffman's theory of stigma and concept of phase are relevant also in this study because it refers to those people who lost their self-worth because of internalizing stigmatization. Phase is a socially constructed aspect, and loss of phase is the greatest of the dehumanizing problem, and this is what happened to the traffic victims. How do they regain phase is a question. Stigma is an attribute according to Goffman, and this attribute leads to an othering of the stigmatized from the normal in society and distances the stigmatized from the normal by foisting on them an attribute that becomes part of their ascribed identity that is negative, you know. As a traffic victim, the negative attributes leads to exclusion and loss of self-esteem, and takes a toll on their emotional well-being and precludes them in reintegrating. Now, sociologically, labeling is a significant social process. Labeling and stigmatization create in the interaction with the traffic survivor, family, and society.
Blank थी यार दिमाग तो.
You see, stigmatization is often manifested in the form of social exclusion, prejudice, fear, silence, shame, denial of freedom, and rejection. Even Uma Chakrabarti affirms that, you know, returning to the ancient references of dasa, dasa means slave. We see that in case of women, these dasas were largely employed in domestic services as agricultural laborers and also for sexual pleasures of their masters. Returning again to the ancient texts in relation with women, Devadasi was a brutal form of enslavement of young girls who were given to the service of God much before they attained puberty, and later were subject to sexual exploitation. And this Devadasi system is not confined to Andhra and Telangana alone. I do understand that it is also there in Karnataka, Maharashtra, and other parts. Now, in most of these cases, the consent of young girls are insignificant. On the other hand, you know, young virgin girls are considered to be an honorable gift from one king to another, from one master to another, you know, and from one priest to another. So the women were gifted, gifted were employed to the domestic chores of the master's house, you know, or the temple, and were subject to sexual and economic exploitation. Now, in the context of trafficking, the practice of Devadasi system underlines the trend of sexual commodification of women, their marginalization, and their constant exploitation. Some recent studies, you know, of U. Vindhya, Swati Dev, and few others show the link between the practice of Devadasi and trafficking of women. Uh, According to the study by Maggie Black of Anti-Slavery International in 2007, the young Devadasis are easy victims of trafficking because of their pre-established sexual openness and lack of familial ties, wherein the older Devadasis may end up serving as perpetrators of trafficking. Uh, I want to now look into the causes of trafficking. What causes trafficking in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana? The major cause includes low literacy. In Andhra Pradesh, it is 67.02%, Telangana 72.2%, which is below the national average of 74.0%, according to the Census of India 2011. Another cause of trafficking is low birth rate. For example, Mehboob Nagar district, which is hardly 60 kilometers from Hyderabad, has only 6%. And then malnourishment is another cause. 38% of children under 3 years were malnourished. And then highest prevalence of child labor and bonded labor in India are in these two states. And of course, the last cause is the rampant child marriage. 80% of girls are married before the age of 15 years, which is quite alarming. Sumitra Makapati, founder of Ankuram, a social group that works with girls and women, affirms that child marriages are linked to human trafficking here in South India. Now, let me also talk a little bit about my field visit. Out of the total districts in both the state, 10 districts in each state, that means, as I mentioned, 20 districts, all the 4 districts in Rayalaseema region were covered. In coastal Andhra Pradesh, 6 districts out of 9 districts were covered. The fieldwork was not conducted in East Godavari, Vijayanagaram, and Srikakulam due to non-availability of NGOs and police personnel. Now, in order to conduct field work, presence of either NGO personnel and police or both was a prerequisite, since they provide the link to the rescue survivors, as I mentioned already. Now, it may be noted that field work in a place like Guntur and Vijayawada and Guntur, was conducted, which is very close to Amravati, the new capital of Andhra Pradesh, was conducted with the help of, this local NGOs and police. Now, let me come to the major findings. We collected data of 224 and majority of them were between 21 to 40 years of age at the time of interview. 21 to 40 years of age at the time of interview. Although there were young victims in transit or shelter homes, those around 10 to 12 years old, but permission to interview the survivors below 16 years was not granted to us. The youngest victim was 16 years old, and the oldest victim was 70 years old at the time of interview. I remember when I interviewed a woman who is around 55, 56 years old in Chaitanya Mahila Mandali in Secunderabad, close to Osmania University. She said that she was trafficked to Mumbai brothel. She was brought back by her good client. And then she joined again flash trade sex work because she has no other alternative. And I asked her if I can help her to get into an NGO and give her training so that she can come out of this flesh trade. She said, my body will not sell after 3 to 4 years. After 60 years, my body will be valued less than 100 rupees. So therefore, I can't work anymore. I have to go home. I have built my house. I bought a car. My 2 sons are now doing engineering. So I've set my life and I will go home. This is the response she gave me. One of the shocking answer to me was that her body at the age of 60 years and above is less than 100 rupees. Now, coming to another issue is that majority of these women were married at the time of interview. Few women did not want to reveal their current relationship status. Most women survivors were unmarried at the time of trafficking, and they got married after their rescue and reintegration program through the NGOs and police. Now, when it comes to the religion, I found that majority of them are Hindus followed by Muslims. A few of them refuse to disclose their religious status. And still a fewer number of them says they are atheists, they don't believe in religion. A few survivors did not wish to disclose their caste affiliations, but majority of them are found to be scheduled castes, scheduled tribe, and other backward castes. And also there are general castes, upper castes, who belong to below poverty line families. So poverty is cited as one of the main reasons for luring victims into trafficking. I also found that most of them live in urban cities, urban areas and cities, you know, and then their parents live in the rural villages and townships. And when I look at the pattern of education, obviously most of them are illiterate, followed by those who are marginally literate. It means below 10th class. And also many of them are school dropouts, and some of them have never gone to school, obviously, because they're illiterate. Now, majority of them are working in terms of job. When we ask the question, what is your present occupation? Majority of them said they work as housemaid, they work as janitors, peons, and the like. Some work as daily wage laborers, industrial laborers, piece rate workers in garment and manufacturing industries, and construction site laborers and stone crushing jobs. In fact, my research fellow had gone to outskirts of Vikarabad and also Mechel. This is, you know, in and around the city within the radius of 100 to 120 kilometers, not 200, and interviewed women, trafficked women who are married but working as stone crushing, works in the stone crushing job. Now, a considerable number of them are you know, currently undergoing training for tailoring, embroidery, bakery, jute and cotton handicraft, pottery, sanitary napkin through the NGOs. And Prajwala is doing exactly this, you know, excellent job. I'm very, very impressed, although there are a lot of feminists who are very critical of this NGO shelter homes, you know, for keeping hundreds of trafficked girls. But I see the positive side of keeping these girls. I mean, where will they go? Their family in Andhra and Telangana, huge majority of families do not want these rescued girls to be reintegrated with them. So where will the girls go? They have to go as sex work. They have to go and do sex work again. So it's very important for these NGOs to give them vocational training and push them to become a member of the mainstream society over the years. Now, it may be noted that women currently who are doing training, who are undergoing training, are residing in the shelter home, or they're residing in transit homes arranged by the government and the NGOs. And then this training is a part of their everyday life. Only a few of them are self-employed as small-scale vendors and shopkeepers. Now, in terms of income, majority of them are earning between 3,000 to 4,000 per month, you know, quite sad. Now, the trafficked younger girls and women were relatively shy in their responses. You know, before going to the, looking at the responses, I assume that young girls will be smarter than the older women. I thought that these younger girls and women will be chirpy, talkative, and they will be quite open to, you know, kind of give their viewpoint. But to my surprise, I found they are relatively shy. Same is the case with unmarried young survivors who are usually below 30 years of age. This shows a departure from the assumption that the younger generations would be more open and expressive in comparison to the older counterparts, due to their greater exposure to and closer proximity with the modern means of communication like mobile phone, etc. Now, the police, when it comes to the police, I found that the police in both Andhra and Telangana are very professionally trained in anti-human trafficking and talk at length about their experiences of trafficking cases. And they did not see the department in negative light at all and affirmed that they were knowledgeable and trained to deal with these trafficking cases. In fact, they confirmed the arrest of some traffickers, but they could not share the figures of traffickers being arrested to me. And when a girl is booked and the trafficker is given a bail, he or she goes on to recruit other girls and women. And there is no attempt at breaking the entire network. I'm not going to talk about anti-human trafficking law into this because it will take so much of time. So let me focus more on my findings. Now, trafficking is gradually involving young girls as young as 5 years old. There is a myth, as we all know, that sex with virgins will cure STD, sexually transmitted disease, and also prevent from contracting HIV/AIDS. So, majority of young girls involved in trafficking are already HIV positive. And it is also true that the increasing number of children who are orphaned because of AIDS are in fact being trafficked for sexual exploitation, as they are without any protection and theme. When my students went for field work in Hussain Sagar Lake, many of you who are familiar with the twin city of Hyderabad and Secunderabad would know, is a place which divides the twin city. Now, my research assistants went with their male friend in the evening to interview these ladies, because sex workers, traffic victims who turn sex workers usually hang out in Secunderabad railway station. They have hot spots, Panjagutta, Begumpet. Then this Hussain Sagar Lake is another hot spot. And then the old city of Hyderabad is another hot spot. Charminar area is another hot spot. I remember my girls came back one evening after field work and said, ma'am, the ladies came up to our male friend, who's a University of Hyderabad student, research scholar, and says, how much? So they thought that, he's an interested client for them. And they also said that they will not use condoms if he pays more. So that is what, in the context of HIV, I'm just giving you this example. Now, one prominent theme that emerged from my field work was the recurrence of shame and silence on the part of the victims. Most of the victims. The victims would either avoid a question or offer a monosyllabic answer. In response to a question on how they felt as a victim of trafficking, many of them responded in one-word answer like they felt sorry, guilty, ashamed of myself, shameful, helpless, and the like. In some cases where the victims were rescued and sent back to their parents, and most of them in the age group 5 to 25, the parents often forced them to remain silent because of stigma, which Golfman talked about, and then because of prestige, which Max Weber talked about, and of course, fear of the traffickers. And there is constant re-trafficking that takes place here in Andhra and Telangana. The reserved attitude of younger survivors can be attributed to the fact that they still look for an opportunity to marry and have children. In this regard, an exposure to their terrible past life may adversely affect their future plan. So they are cautious about sharing the detailed information pertaining to their life as victim. Now, I just want to also mention that in the case of child marriage, the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, particularly mother-in-law and husbands, pushes the young bride to be trafficked and get engaged into sex work. And another thing that I found in my interview with the Telugu sex workers in Delhi brothels is that they are mostly children of bidi workers, cigarette bidi workers. When the bidi workers, work in the bidi farm for 10 years, 8 years with their girl child, they have a good relation with the management. And the management, it seems, would ask the parents to send their girl child to Delhi, stating that they will be given better job and better salary. Because of the trust that they build up over the past 1 decade, 8 to 10 years, the parents usually agree to send the girls to Delhi. So once they reach Delhi, they push into the brothel. So this is also another finding, now the older, let me talk about a little more about the older survivors. The older survivors, about 40 years and above, were more open to share their stories. It indicates a departure from the earlier assumption that the older generation are more reserved, and speaking of sexual violence is still a taboo for them. During the interview, an older survivor remarked, "There is nothing to lose now, nothing to be scared of." She was ready to share her story to the minutest details. The same person also allowed me to capture her picture. In fact, when I went to Chaitanya Mahila Mandali, that NGO, I already called Jayama, the director, and the director has arranged some 7-8 women, if I remember, around 7 women. Now I had a focus group discussion with them, and when I told them, can I take a video of you, can I take pictures with you, they just said yes. I asked them whether I can use it for my research. They say yes, but they don't want to tell their names. That is one of the things that I already mentioned. They're quite open. What I'm trying to say is that they're quite open because they feel nothing more to lose. And interestingly, some of the victims squeeze if they would receive money in return for their interviews. Now, there is a need to look at the connecting dots between forced victimization, prevalent in trafficking, and the notion of guilt, shame, and silence. Most victims is felt insecure and unsure about their future. Now, this is despite the fact that many of them are at present financially engaged in gainful employment. Insecurity and uncertainty about life pertain both to victims' personal and work sphere, but somehow it was more pronounced in their personal lives. Unmarried victims admitted to be living under an everyday fear that their past will be exposed. And some women says that they pretended to be widows, so they put the sindoor and they tell the societies that they are, their husbands passed away, just to avoid, Now, in some cases where the victims are rescued and sent back to their parents, as I said, most of the parents refuse to take back their children. Now, I also would like to mention that the survivors in my study adapted to the new environment. For example, victims who were trafficked internally within AP remain Telugu speaking. And those victims who were trafficked outside Andhra Pradesh and Telangana could understand and speak other languages like Marathi, Hindi, Bengali, and even in few cases, English words and phrases. Now, the traffic survivors, for the purpose of sex works, were more fluent in languages other than Telugu because they've already stayed in other states for 5 to 10 years. Now, ironically, my research fellow found a victim who was trafficked at the age of 5 years, who stated that she has completely forgotten her native language, Telugu, and learned Marathi and Hindi in a Mumbai brothel. On her return to Andhra Pradesh, she still feels like an outsider and has not yet become fluent in Telugu, that is her mother tongue. In another case, a victim was forced to speak only Hindi and English to her clients in her Mumbai-based brothel and was severely beaten if she tried to speak and communicate with other Telugu girls in their native language, were brought to the brothel from time to time. In most of the cases, the victims were trafficked at a very young age, as I mentioned earlier. And some of them were trafficked when they were just, very, very young. Now, this indicates to the pattern of traffickers' preference for victims' age and vulnerability. And, most of them were trafficked at the pretext of love, marriage, and job, and then betrayed later. This indicates to the deception-based method of traffickers. Victims were, deceived and coerced to do the things that they don't want to do. This indicates to the poverty-based cause of trafficking. Now, let me just talk about suggestions, challenges. The major challenges include rapid changes in modus operandi of the traffickers, changing routes, changing destinations, changing locations due to crackdowns in demand areas, lack of knowledge and awareness on implications and potential of Anti-Trafficking Act, the capacity building of key community stakeholders, street theater, school, college, university campaigns, enforcement and capacity building of functionaries, including the police and judicial officers, remains a huge challenge. Now, my suggestion is that we need institutions that can help and also maintain privacy. And the point is that the press sensationalizes and the academicians do not sensationalize. And this is the reason why packaged news sells. Well, the hard reality from the field is full of bitter truths. Yet we can hope for new beginnings. Now, let me conclude by saying that the major root causes of human trafficking should be considered, should be taken into consideration, and then acted upon to prevent recurrence of this trafficking. South India needs a specialized legislation to deal with the trafficking, even though the existing Indian Penal Code of 1860 and then Anti-Human Trafficking Bill of 2018 deal with the offenses of kidnapping, abduction, buying, selling of minors, prevention, rehabilitation, and things like that. A comprehensive sociological research is needed to sensitize the trafficking issue involving people from diverse backgrounds. Now, I would also say that the media and civil society must realize the intensity of this menace by raising ethical questions and interventions to campaign. Not just highlight the news that trafficking happened here, there, and khatam, but they should raise ethical questions and, intervene to campaign, to create awareness campaign among the public. The women and girls are held as victims in debt bondage for years, and they are also subjected to forms of torture, beatings, exposure to HIV and arbitrary imprisonment. So there has to be a human rights approach to the whole issue of human trafficking. In fact, in Northeast India, human trafficking is looked at only from a human rights perspective. Now, the government has to recognize its responsibility in preventing trafficking, and it cannot escape its responsibility by continuing to see this trafficking and an unfortunate social evil with its roots in poverty. With COVID-19 pandemic and the plight of migrant workers, trafficking has become more worse than ever before. The linkages between HIV, sexually transmitted disease, and trafficking have to be understood very seriously. And the need of an hour is the prevention and control of trafficking of women and girls. And then I would say that, we need institutions, sociologies, we need sociologies in institutions who should demand that all girls have the opportunity to reach their full potential instead of living in the gulags of the sex trade. And another thing is that we need to build up anti-human trafficking clubs in the universities and colleges to tackle this menace, by the youth, because our youth plays a very significant role in preventing human trafficking. And I may end with an optimistic note that there may be more meaningful and fruitful interactions between sociological viewpoints and national and international policies, and this would inaugurate a new agenda. Thank you so much for your patient hearing, and I hope I make sense with my argument and findings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for providing peep into breadth coverage of human trafficking in South India in a holistic manner. The magnitude of problem is surely alarming, and it's need of an hour to dig deeper to understand whole business of human trafficking and organized crime in South India. In this context, it brings significance to bring these issues for discussion and understanding so as to be able to assist in devising a strategy that will monitor the implementation of the law relating to trafficking in its entirety. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing so much time and sharing with this august audience your wisdom of thought on doing fieldwork in unconventional situation, a study of human trafficking and organized crime in South India. And I'm sure all of us imbibe so much from your knowledge and thoughts. With equal pleasure, I feel happy to invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajiv Jain, for presidential remark. We are highly honored that our Honorable Vice Chancellor is amongst us today. Sir has recently joined University of Rajasthan. I'm sure that under your able and visionary guidance, University of Rajasthan will touch the new heights of success. A gracious welcome to you, sir. Rajiv, sir,
Yes.
you may unmute yourself, sir.
Unmute.
Yes, sir.
वो कहाँ है unmute?
नीचे एक बटन है, माइक का बटन बना हुआ है, उसको अनम्यूट करिए. Then we can hear you. You are unmuted. आप अपना वीडियो ऑन कर लें.
वीडियो वाली पता नहीं पड़ रहा है बाकी तो.
सर जहाँ पे म्यूट का है उसके साथ ही वीडियो भी है. आपने स्क्रीन शेयर करी है.
हाँ.
तो देखिएगा ये सेटिंग्स में देखिएगा जो स्क्रीन दिख रही है आपके यहाँ उस पे वीडियो लिखा हुआ है ब्लू से.
May I audible? अब इसको तो करो ना यार.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay, but my
I think your video is not on. Your camera is off. I think अगर आप लैपटॉप से कर रहे हैं तो जहाँ कैमरा है वहाँ एक बटन होता है, आप उसको थोड़ा सा स्लाइड कर दें तो it will be okay. Yeah.
अब नहीं आ रहा तो चलिए. I welcome you all. Hello, may I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay.
Please continue.
Good afternoon. I welcome you all in Professor Ram Ahuja Memorial Oration organized by Department of Sociology, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. Human trafficking is one of the gravest deprivation of human right and dignity. Most countries in the world and the state of our own country are grappling with the issue of human trafficking. According to the National Crime Record Bureau a total number of 5,264 cases of human trafficking were reported in India in 2018, whereas 64% were women and 48 were below 18 years of old. The most affected area are Bihar, Maharashtra, Telangana, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Orissa, and West Bengal. People from economically disadvantaged class and belonging to the categories of SC, ST, OBC are more victim to such malpractices. It creates drastic impact on the individual victims in all the area of life. Law on human trafficking have not been successful in securing conventions and increasing rehabilitation for superior for trafficking. We need to address the issue of human trafficking in a holistic and right-based manner. The root cause of trafficking are poverty, social or cultural practices, and immigrants. Other causes are nature of border, corrupt government officials, the involvement of international organized uh, criminal group or network, and limited capacity of commitment by immigration and law enforcement officers to control borders. All this, all the same, it is true that the discrimination and violence against women are ingrained in the Indian society. It takes place in their families, with girls being locked up in their own homes, women being beaten by their husbands, by their fathers, by their brothers. I would like to congratulate Professor Ajiai Yumi for working on this important area. She has focused attention and on structural factors of trafficking for recommending meaningful strategies to counter this social evil. There is a need to raise voice against societal discrimination and the resulting trafficking of women. I am glad that the Department of Sociology is organizing program on important societal issues. Special thanks to Dr. Rashmi Jain, Head Department of Sociology. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your benign presence, valuable remarks, and being with us in your busy schedule. It has been rightly said that we should start each day with a grateful heart, as the joy is gratefulness. Respected invitees, I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks. I, Dr. Anuja Jain, on behalf of Department of Sociology, extend heartiest vote of thanks to all for gracing the occasion and sharing your remembrances of Professor Ahuja and your visions today. I, on behalf of entire fraternity of sociology, extend my special thanks to our distinguished speaker, Professor Ajiai Niumai, for delivering such an insightful and fruitful views on issues pertaining to human trafficking. I must mention deep sense of appreciation for explanation and analysis on this issue. All of us imbibe so much from your knowledge and words. Thank you so much, ma'am. My profound gratitude to Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Rajiv Jain for accepting our invitation and providing encouragement. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing the occasion and sharing with the august audience your vision on human trafficking and organized crime. My sincere thanks on behalf of Department of Sociology to Manohar Ahuja ji, his son Mukesh ji, Sanjay ji, and daughter-in-law Sonia ji and Neelam ji, and entire family members of Professor Ram Ahuja for their affection and contributions that they have shown towards department. I also extend my gratitude to Professor Sushma Sood, Dr. G.S. Keval Ramani for sharing memories of Professor Ram Ahuja sir. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Dr. Virendra Prakash sir, Rajiv Gupta sir, N.K. Bhatt sir, Pranat Rawat sir, Manju Kumari ma'am, Indra Mathur ma'am, Shashila Jain ma'am, Leena Parmar ma'am, Mridula Bhatnagar ma'am, Nana Sharma ma'am, Anila Jain ma'am for gracious presence. I also extend my gratitude to all those who have joined from outside Rajasthan. R. Indira ma'am, former President ISS for gracious presence. I also extend my thanks to our beloved HOD, Dr. Rashmi Jain, for enormous cooperation in organizing this memorial oration. My gratitude to Mr. Ashuram, co-convener of today's oration, for enormous cooperation. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues of this department. Thanks to all respected colleagues. I pay my sincere thanks to all respected senior faculty members teaching fraternity from various streams. Thanks to all the research scholars, students for listening calmly. I would also like to thank all the technical and non-technical staff for their support. I thank you all who have participated overwhelmingly and have graced the occasion. Have a nice day. Stay safe. Stay happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Rashmi, thank you. Anuja, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Ajiai and Jalu, for your lovely presentation on trafficking. And now that the formal, oration is over, I would like to, before we start, in mingling with each other and talking to each other, let me thank the convener, Dr. Anuja Jain, and co-convener, Dr. Ashuram, for their support and for the organization of this event, which I think all of you can see that it was a hit, especially with the speaker as prolific as Professor Niumai. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, everybody. Now, if we would like to speak to each other, we can unmute ourselves and speak.
I love your spirit, Rashmi.
Yeah, thank you. Because now the official part is over, so now we can talk to each other. Because it's this pandemic has given us one good thing, that is that we are able to connect to each other through digital platforms, which was not done earlier. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's true.
You have a vibrant faculty team.
Yes, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that we have very good faculty members, colleagues who are always, ready and very motivated to do new things, and they don't shy away from any kind of, work which is involved into it. So I deem it as a real privilege to be leading them.
Yeah, and so touching to have Professor Ram Ahuja's family members today.
Yes.
What a privilege and honor for me, to speak in front of them as well.
Yeah. See, yeah, that's true. That's true. Every year, we are so thankful to them that they join us every year physically. This time they have joined us digitally, but they always make it a point to come to the department. His brother, his sons, daughter-in-laws, because today is the death anniversary of Professor Ahuja. So we've always tried to organize it on the same day so that we can really pay homage to him.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hello, I just want to congratulate you on a very well organized program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Rashmi Jain, it was very nice being part of the whole.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I'm so happy that you joined us, and I mean, I would, since we are already here, I would request you to join us later also in other programs. We will surely invite you to speak, to address our students as well.
Yes, sure, definitely. I was remembering.
Yeah, she's demanded. Yes. Ma'am is always busy.
No problem. It's always a pleasure. And I was just remembering the time we came to Jaipur for the
conference.
Yes,
that's true. That's true. It seems like a once upon a time, 12 years ago, 2008.
Yes.
That's true.
Okay. Very
nice.
Ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, all the best. And I'm so happy that you have kept the memories of a teacher alive like this.
Yes.
See, even as president of ISS, I always made it a point, to mention that in many departments across the country, you see that connect disappearing. but it should not be done. But here I see that, isn't it? So
Yes.
well connected.
Ma'am, you will see in our department, our senior most faculty members, like one of the contemporaries of Professor Ahuja, Professor Indu Mathur is there, and
Yeah.
she's all of them join us in all our programs, and they're always welcome in the department. And so we are so blessed to have all our seniors with us today.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
awesome.
Okay, that's very
Thank you,
nice.
ma'am.
Bye bye then.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Looking forward to seeing
And team, thank you so much once again for having me.
Thank you for accepting an invitation in just one shot. I just called you up and you said, "Oh yes, I would love to do it." So thank you so much
Okay,
for doing
bye-bye.
it. Yeah. Bye, bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Everybody, thank you so much on my own behalf and Department of Sociology for having joined us on this oration. Thank you, Anila ma'am.
Good.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. We are joined with our students also. I see Subhash, I see Anita Rathi, Pragya. So thank you so much. And of course, my own faculty members, Karunakar, Monica, Shivam, Lokeshwari, Ashuram is with me in this hall. Today we had experimented also. We had this oration on the screen as well through and our audio for all of us to hear in the hall as well. So we took off our headphones and we heard the oration on the screen, or a bigger screen with the audio. So this was one experiment which we did. So next time, maybe if this continues, then we will have all the faculty members also present and do something. So it was very interesting to have it on the screen and with audio, outside audio, external audio, and not using your mics. So it was quite good.
It was very wonderfully came out, ma'am, and it was so enriching. We
Good.
really
I'm happy.
feel proud that we are part of this department, and we are
I'm happy.
Kudos to the team organizing.
Yeah. I see Sanjay also here. Sanjay would like to extend a warm thanks to the family members, Mukesh and Sanjay, for always being there. And of course, Manohar Ahuja sir is always there. So it's one phone call and they are always there. So I'm very thankful to them. And it is also because, since the presence of family members motivates us to do more and to try and have speakers specifically on the issues which are very close to Ahuja sir's heart. And that's why we thought this time let's have Professor Ajiai because she's working on human trafficking. And of course, Professor Ahuja had this issue very close to his heart. So I'm happy that she agreed, and we have. I'm also thankful to Dr. Manju Kumari, who's come here in physical to be with us on this occasion in the department. Even in the last oration that we had, she was here present physically with us. Today also she's present physically with us, and so thankful to her because having your own people join in with you it's kind of it's like a shot which gives an adrenaline shot which takes you away into higher. So thank you so much. And I think now we'll close the meeting. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rashmi.